Today I'm sharing how you can revamp or perhaps give new life to some old fall decorations that you might have in your home. My main goal is to implement simple changes and use inexpensive things over again so that I can give these pieces new life. Hey everyone, my name is Yami. I am your Latina next door. Welcome back to Mi Casa, where I share high-end home decor and DIYs on a budget, as well as extreme before and after room transformations. If that's something that you'd enjoy, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe so that you too can become part of the familia. You guys know that I am currently working on my YouTube studio and we're kind of switching places around in our home, so it can get a little cluttered. I haven't wanted to actually go out and purchase anything new for my space. I'm really trying to work with what I have so that I can reduce clutter and not overwhelm myself while we're doing all these other projects in our home. So I'm taking some leftover fall pieces that I've had from previous years, even some items that I have done in the past. I'm just gonna redo them again so that they can fit my style this season. And I kind of wanted to share how sometimes you can have old and outdated things in your home for the seasons or for just every day, and you can just give them new life. Instead of spending money on something new or getting rid of what you have, sometimes you just need a few little things and a little bit of time, and you can revamp what you already have and you can love it all over again. So that's what I'm doing in today's video. I hope this gives you some ideas on what you can do with your own things in your home. So let's go ahead and get started. So initially I was going to do different types of fall decor. However, since in fall we love to decorate with pumpkins, and I still had some left over from last year that I didn't use, as well as others that I recreated and honestly wasn't using anymore for this year, I thought let's use some of these and revamp pumpkins for this year and give you guys several ideas of how you can update them for your new color scheme if you've changed it up. Now, I'm not sure if you've been to Dollar Tree lately, but I am very impressed with their yarn selection. As you can see here, they have different types like chenille, regular yarn, and even stuff that looks a little bit more like baker's twine. So I pulled this little pumpkin apart. You do get these at Dollar Tree again this year. And I inserted my scissors in the center of it to make the hole larger. And then I used a pencil to try to enlarge the hole. And I'll show you in just a minute why I'm doing this, but it will make sense in a second. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to feed the yarn through this hole, as you can see here, and I'm going to glue it to one part of it. Now the reason I made that hole is so that I can wrap my yarn, and this time I'm using the baker's twine. I'm using like the double color. It's like a white and a green color, and what I'm doing is using an embroidery needle, I'm feeding it through the hole. If you keep wrapping this and all you do is bring up the yarn and hot glue it or kind of bunch it up over on itself, what you'll get are two big bunches at the very top and the bottom of your pumpkin, and you're going to lose the shape of the pumpkin and also have like a really hard knot on both ends because you're just going to keep accumulating the yarn over and over again. By adding this hole, you eliminate that problem and your pumpkin stays the exact same shape without overdoing the yarn on both ends. I hope that makes sense. So as you can see, I started with the creased part of the pumpkins, and then I got little bunches of this thin yarn, and I decided I would go ahead and cut them and place them in between those creased areas. And then what I would do is I would just cut down the ends, hot glue them, and tuck them inside of that center hole. And then of course I just repeated this process over until I covered the entire pumpkin. So then I had this mini gourd that actually came from the top of this pumpkin, if you remember, and I took my mini saw and just sawed off the end so I can create a pumpkin stem. I gave it 2 coats of some regular brown acrylic paint and hot glued it to the top. And that was it for this first pumpkin. Alright, so let's just say you want to get a little bit fancier with the yarn and do something a little bit different. We're going to step it up a notch. For this pumpkin, I'm using a thicker yarn, and what I'm doing here is just creating a little bunch by just rolling the yarn over on itself and back again so that I can create just enough to wrap it around the side. Now, if you notice, this pumpkin has a much larger hole, which is why I'm not really feeding it through it, creating these little bunches where I would glue the top end inside of the hole and then wrap it around, and then do the same thing on the other end. Now, as you can see, I was really trying to be meticulous and cover as much of the orange as possible, as well as keeping the yarn nice and straight and kind of flowing really evenly throughout the sides. My goal here was to cover everything except the inner creases of the pumpkin because we're going to add a little detail there. So once we have most of the pumpkin covered and only have those inner creases, I'm going to take another bunch of yarn and I'm going to tape it to the counter, table, wherever you're working. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a braid. And then I'm going to attach it in those little areas where the creases were still not covered. And I'm going to just keep doing these until all the creases are covered with braids. Then once it's completely covered, I'm going to take my hot glue gun and kind of insert it at the very top. As you can see, it kind of accumulated at the top because the braids are so thick. But this allowed me to create a little hole so I can insert the original stem back on. And that was it for this DIY. For this next one, I'm going to show you how to apply yarn in a different pattern. Now this was actually a previous DIY from last year, but I'm not using those colors this year, so I'm taking it apart. And this is just, you guessed it, a Dollar Tree foam pumpkin, which I haven't actually seen this year. So I'm taking that chenille yarn from Dollar Tree and I'm starting it at the top, and I am just going to circle it around onto itself, making sure that everything is nice and tight and even so I don't see any of that paint that's underneath. And I am going to take this all the way to the underneath part, not leaving any part of this pumpkin uncovered. Now when you're going down the sides, you're going to come across those little ridges on the pumpkin. Make sure you have enough slack to insert the yarn to fit in those little creases. If not, it's just going to be a round ball and it won't really resemble a pumpkin. So make sure the yarn travels in and out of those creases to follow the form of your original pumpkin. I wanted to add a little leaf to this, and I had this one from last year, so I cut it down to make it a little bit smaller because obviously it was too big for this pumpkin. So I took some wire cutters, cut it down, and trimmed the leaves to make it resemble a smaller leaf. And then since I didn't have a stem for this, since I removed it last year, I decided to use an old wine cork for the stem. And that was it for this pumpkin upgrade. Since I had removed the bottom pumpkin of that topiary for the last project, I decided to go ahead and do something with the other two pumpkins that were left. For the middle pumpkin, I decided I was going to go with these little dots that you can get at Dollar Tree. They're always in their craft section. And I am just going to apply them vertically on all of the sides of it, going down on those outer ridges. And then I took some light green acrylic paint and began to paint everything, both the pumpkin and the buttons. And I did have to give this 2 full coats to give it full coverage. And I didn't have a stem for this, so we're gonna get really crafty. I don't know if you remember my hula skirt that keeps on giving. Yes, I still have a piece of it. Well, I cut off some of the waistband and some of the raffia, bolted it over onto itself, and then wrapped the raffia around it to create a little stem for this pumpkin. We are really getting creative here, okay? And then after I'm done fiddling with it and fine-tuning it for like 5 minutes straight, it is ready to go inside. So I hot glued it on the inside and then added a little bit more raffia around the bottom edge to kind of hide the hole that was originally there and make it look like it was meant to be there all along. And that was it for this DIY. Now for this next DIY, if you guys recall a couple videos ago, I shared how to make this beautiful vine covered pumpkin with my Cricut, and I thought I would share a different version of this for those of you who don't own one. It's super easy to do, and you can find these so inexpensively at Dollar Tree. Now you can choose to add words or just beautiful vines and florals with these really nice rub-on transfers. Now you can either use a pumpkin that you have that you really like and just want to add something to it, or if you have an older outdated pumpkin, you can give it a fresh new coat of paint and then add these on top to completely transform it. Now, if you've never used these rub-on transfers, it's really easy. You just cut out what you want, apply it on your surface, and then rub off the design onto your surface, and then peel back the clear tape. And you can do so much with these. I decided I would add a little thankful to the pumpkin and then add vines all around. Now after you've added all of your rub-on transfers, you can leave it as is. You can apply a clear glossy coat to cover everything and make it look like it's ceramic. There are so many things you can do. But that was basically it for this one as well. So this next pumpkin transformation, I'm going to warn you, is not my best work. But I thought, hey, full transparency here, I want to show you guys that not everything comes out. And at the end of it all, I don't think it came out too bad, but it's just not to my standards. So for this one, I had this white pumpkin. I've had it for a while now, and I thought, why not add these beautiful little leaf stencils onto it in a beautiful metallic green to give it an extra detail and see how it comes up. These are actually sticky back stencils, and they're from Dollar Tree. I've used them before, but unfortunately with the ridges on this pumpkin, they really didn't stick that well. So I had quite a bit of bleed through, but in the end, they didn't look that bad. It's just not my best work. And I am using the wrong brush for this, but I did try the stencil brush and it was not putting any paint onto the pumpkin, no matter how much I added onto it. So that's why I'm using this artist brush instead. And that is it for this pumpkin transformation. Another way to update a pumpkin is to add ribbon or lace to it. Now you can do a similar color pumpkin to your lace or your ribbon, or you can have a colored pumpkin and then apply a different color lace or ribbon on top of it, and it will look really beautiful as well. Now doing this is going to be the easiest and fastest way to update a pumpkin. All you need to do is glue down the end of the ribbon and then begin to wrap it around the pumpkin, moving it as you go so that you cover the next little section beside the one that you previously did. And the good thing about this one is that you don't have to add glue every step of the way as you're wrapping it around the pumpkin, just at certain little areas until you have it all wrapped up in your new ribbon. Now I really think this one's adorable because it just has that cottage feel to it, and it's so soft and comforting, and it's different than the yarn version of it. Once you're done with the ribbon, it's time to add the original stem, and that is it for this pumpkin DIY. Well, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you got some ideas on what you can do to update some of the things that you already have in your home and reuse them for this new season. If you did enjoy this, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up and let me know in the comments below which one of these DIYs was your favorite. I hope to see you guys next week with another home decor and DIY video. Until then, adios!